How's it going, everybody? Welcome to another Toon Boom Harmony tutorial. My name is Frank Summers. For today's tutorial is actually a viewer request by one Clovis Shropshire. I hope I'm pronouncing your name correctly. At first I wasn't quite sure if I should do this as a separate video or if I should do this as a part of the Harmony tutorials, but I figured there's a lot to learn, so we can dive into it a little bit. He was not concerned, but he requested to see a bit more of a breakdown or a teardown of one of my shorts I posted up called Professor K. I originally drew Professor K, who was from Jet Set Radio or Jet Grind Radio or Jet Set Future, what have you, take your pick. I did him originally as a Wednesday Lunch Live sketch, but I always had it in my head to do a animated short of really his hair. I loved his hair, or his dreadlocks. I thought they were one of the most interesting things about him. Especially when I first saw it way back on the Dreamcast back in the late 90s. Because I always loved how his hair danced to the music, so I always wanted to just kind of draw his hair animated. And as I went into it, I got a little further and further, and I kind of went down the rabbit hole, so to speak. And so then I added a little bit of motion to his arms, gave him a little bit of a movement, and then I added speakers into the whole thing, so it became more than just a sketch for me. Why don't I just jump into Harmony really quickly, and maybe we can take a peek at what I'm talking about. So right now you're looking at the setup of it. So I guess to put it simply, to start off, I don't really consider the model of Professor K here to be very well fleshed out. This is kind of a one-off in terms of I really didn't have him ever wanting to come out of this pose per se. And then as I went along, I was like, well, maybe I need to move him in a little bit more. But my original idea, really, like I said, I was kind of more in love with his hair. I wanted his hair to move a lot. So the hair is kind of built out a little bit. But those are very simple, too. They're just deformers. And I broke up the arms in a very simple manner. Well, there's a camera move. Let me turn the camera move off. And let me turn the audio off so we're not scrubbing with the audio. The audio should be turned off. There we go. So he just has an up and down motion going on, and his arms, and if I could, I don't know if I have I do. Good, I have a display node hooked up to him, so I can, if you refer back to my timeline tutorial, I have display nodes hooked up to him, so I can just see him in the timeline and within the camera view. And he's pretty simple. This red line right here is just him. He just has his arms. Let's show all of his deformers. You know, there's nothing really crazy going on here. And like I said before, that, you know, he wasn't really built out more than, and let me hide some of his tones. I have some tone modules going on here. And what I meant was he's not built out. He's built for this one-off purpose. So if I bend his arm a little bit too much, you can see that this really breaks. And I kind of knew that going into this. I knew I was never going to make him out of this pose much more than what it is. So I knew this was going to happen, so I knew that I would never move him beyond a certain point without this breaking. I knew that this layering issue, this is a weird layering. So I knew all this going into it, and so that's why some of this works, you know. As he goes up and down, this is a very simple cycle. Right here in the timeline, I have a yellow marker I put in, and that really is it. That's the cycle right there. It is really, if I put start and stop, I can go up here and change this to 24, I believe. And if I hit loop and then hit play, he's just going, that's it. The cycle is a 24 frame cycle of him just going up and down. I'll talk about the dreads in a second and what I did there. But all I really did was just move this very slightly, ever so slightly, put a little bit of delay on the hand, very slight skewing going on. Let me undo what I just did because I'm breaking it. And that's all it is, really. There's some squashing and stretching in the torso to give him a little bit of play. The head is moving up and down as well. A little bit of delay on the head. If I was to take the head and move it out of the way, you'll see that it breaks. There's really, this is a very simple puppet. And again, I want to reiterate that I knew that he was never really going to move out of this pose too much. His hair, or his dreads, I can pop into You know, each one is its own. Let me just kind of show off what's going on here in the network. I apologize if you're using Harmony Essentials. A lot of this is was complex in terms of using curve deformers, but that's all these are just very simple curve deformers in each hair spike. You know, and that's all it really is. I'm just pulling and squishing the hair. And if I could maybe even go into the timeline a little bit, let's see if I can kind of see what I did. I think what I did was I haven't looked at this in like months, so I kind of forget some of what I did. But if I was to take a guess, so let's just look at one. Let's just do show selected only. So these two curves here are representing that and that. And if I was to hit play again, there's just a little bit of a delay. So this curve, which I believe is this, is just moving back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. And this one is, I'm delaying it slightly. So as it's going down, this tip of the tip is just delaying a little bit. So that way it's giving a little bit of an undulating motion. There's a little bit of delay going on. And that's really all it is. It's very simple. It's just that it's layered up is what it is. There's a lot of simple things, but it's all being layered on top of each other, and that makes it look more complex than what it is in terms of his animation. Let's step down in time a little bit, because I did break him a little bit. Probably around here someplace. I think this was this particular yellow mark here is a. Oh, I have to change this. So this particular yellow mark, I remember he falls out of his cycle. There it is. There it is. And all I really did was I'm just pushing what I have already. I'm using the keyframes I already have, and I'm just altering them slightly. I altered his body movement slightly. His hair is still doing the exact same thing. Nothing is changing in there. And a lot of this is just timed to the music. I was just listening to the beats of the music and finding where it fit. So like the arm movement again is not going. It's never breaking. I'm never pushing it further than it should be in this particular spot. And this was just to alter it, or not to alter it, but just to give it a little bit of change. I put a little bit of delay in his face. His face is on a peg. Oh, I guess his face is not on a peg. I should have, though. I guess I just moved those parts individually. And his face is very simple. Like the glasses are a single piece. The brows are a single piece. The mouth, you know. And again, because I want to reiterate this, I want to say it for the third time, I realized I was never going beyond a very certain point with him, so I did not feel the need to build it out. If I keep going down in time a little bit... Okay, so here's where he switches into the arms going, and then now they're pushed to their limit. Like if I was to go a little more, it breaks. So I push the arms to as far as they could go, and then I swap into a new set of arms, which is really here. This is just one replacement that I put a curve deformer in. So we're really only looking at two arms. There's this set of arms, and then it totally disappears into a whole new set of arms that has a curve deformer in it. And I do it very quickly over a short period of time, so we really don't see it. And then I just settle. I shoot and settle. He goes down, antics down, using the same set of arms. And then into here, a third set of arms. They shoot and settle a little bit. The body's the same, the head is the same. The hair is still doing the exact same thing the entire time. Replacement on the nose here, I got a little bit of an up shot on the nose. And of course I lip synced, so I just redrew some mouths. But I'd like to just reiterate, there's only 3 sets of arms. There's one set, there's the second set where we use a curve deformer, and then there's the third set where he moves into his third pose. And that's all it is for him. He's very simple. I just follow the beat of the music. I pick some timing spots, really. That's about it for him. For his color, you might notice he has, if I hit render, let's see what happens here. So it might be very difficult to see, especially on his hair, but against the black background. But there is definitely some tone going on, and that's using the shading modules, the shading tone modules, which can be found if you're using, which is a premium only, the shading system. I don't want to go into that too much right now. I may do a future tutorial on that because that kind of it's a bit of a thing on its own, and I don't want to muddy this particular tutorial too much by going off on too much of a tangent. But suffice it to say, there was a lot of trial and error on this part to get that tone shaded look, which is what I was trying to replicate from the Dreamcast version, the tone shaded look. And so that tone shaded look is being generated by the shading system in Harmony. And like I said, that was just a lot of trial and error. So what we can do now, I'd like to also just talk about is, so the speakers. The speakers are 3D objects, very basic 3D objects. And if I was just to show off the node system a little bit. So here's just one speaker right here. That's this guy right here. And if I was to turn this peg off, let me see if I have a, I do, very good, look at me. I have a speaker display in there. So we can just see the speakers. Let's do the same for our timeline. Again, the same concept, very similar, and very simple animation that's just being repeated and then layered up. So let's just look at the one, let's just turn off this peg. Well, let me turn it back on. And I'll go into my perspective mode, and if I was to rotate around, you will see that the speakers are a 3D object. Very simple 3D object. There's no back to them. They only have 3 sides, and that's because I knew the camera was only going to show so much of it. I'd also like to point out that they kind of break. And some of that was due to the line work that I chose to do on them. There's like a broken, sketchy line that I wanted to use. And so if I zoom in, you can see that there's like a sketchy broken line, and I wanted that effect. But the problem was when I built up the, you can kind of see it a little bit. If I go back into this perspective mode, you're not going to see it as well. I'll zoom in as best as I can. You can see that they're not exactly meeting. The edges are not touching. Oops. Hold on. Let me see if I can find a better view for you. And that is mainly due to the sketchy broken line. And there was a lot of futzing on my part in order to get these pieces to kind of match in the camera view. And again, like I said, because that's the broken felt line, which again is just a preset felt. I believe I used a pencil tool, the pencil tool. So if I just go into the woofer, go into my drawing view, go to my tool properties. Yeah, it's just a pencil, built-in tapered using the rough. It's a standard brush pencil. You have it in your copy of Harmony, and this is all I did. It's just a cycle. I listened to the beat of the music. This is just a single piece of artwork that's being scaled. There's just a scale going on. That's it. The cabinet has a deformation around it, and I'm using what's called a, let's find it, a deform scale. And that can be found in the node library under the deformation. A deform scale, where are you? There's a uniform and a deform scale. There it is. And if you just tuck that into your network, it's just a single bone in there. There's one bone, that's all it is. And the deform scale is, it gets a little processor intensive, so this might be slow. Oh no, it's doing okay. This allows me to do this type of stuff. This is just a normal deform, one single bone, and I use the deformation scale effect node in there so that I could bend the side of the cabinet out to match the subwoofer going on in there. And now you may also notice that when I clicked on this guy and scaled it up, these guys are doing the same thing, and that is because they're just cloned. I cloned each of these particular cabinets. I'm going to call them cabinets for lack of a better word, or a speaker. I cloned them cloned, not duplicated, cloned, so that they match each other. And then I just used a peg to kind of push them down into their proper spot. I built up 3 of them. And then, let's zoom out a little bit. I used a top. I built a top and I built a side, and these are 3D objects. If you can do that by going to your layer properties and just hitting enable 3D. So if I turned it off, I don't know what would happen. It just goes flat. That's all it is. So if I turn that off, let's go to the side, turn that off. You can see that, you know, it's not working the same way. There was a lot, like I said, there's a lot of futzing that was going on to make these things work. And I just bent them in space in order to create a cabinet. Let's make sure that's turned back on. And then I made another peg. This peg here, which controls all of it, that is also a 3D peg, so that I was able to place the cabinet in space. And the only reason I was interested in doing that at all was because I knew that I wanted to add some camera movement. And so let's pull up the active camera. Let's turn it on first. So the camera pans down, and I knew I wanted to have a little bit of depth and dimension to the cabinets. So that was the only reason I went into the whole trouble of building these cabinets in the first place. Speaking of cameras, there are 4 cameras operating in this system. What am I? In the Hoth system. In this scene. Harmony allows you to place different cameras within a scene, and you can only display one at a time. And so what this meant was I was exporting each of these cameras on their own. So if I go to camera, speaker, this is for the part where that's all it is. It's just a close-up of the speaker for that particular part. What's the next one? Let's just go to the next camera. I don't even know what it is. Speaker 2. I don't know why I have a second one. Maybe I flipped it. I don't know what. I have no idea what camera 2 is. May have been a mistake. And then it's called camera fly, where the camera is flying out. And I just exported these all as either QuickTime or I forget what it was, probably a QuickTime. And I brought it into Premiere. If you can see, I'm now in Premiere. And I just assembled all these clips. I'll play it. Come on! And I guess I must have flipped this, which is what camera fly 2 or speaker 2 is. And then here's the end, camera fly out. I just chose to end it on the camera move. But as you can see, there's nothing. I want to just reiterate again for the 4th time. This is the same stuff. I'm just layering it up over and over and over again. The camera movement at the end is the same thing as here, as the beginning. It's just a different camera move. And that's about it, really. I mean, I think that's about all I can talk about. It's all very basic stuff. That's just being layered on top of each other. And here's the node system. I'll show you that. Here's Professor K. And here's our speakers in a group, and the speakers have a drop shadow of Professor K going on against the back of it. If I was to hit render, you would see it. Give it a hot second, because this definitely takes there's a lot of rendering going on here. So you can see there's a slight shadow of Professor K against the speaker cabinet. So I needed to have that happening, because his shadow is also against the back wall here, which is just a slate. It's just a color slate. I also had originally the Jet Set Radio icon back there, but I thought it was too busy, so I took it out. I chose to not have it in there. And that's it. There's 2 copies of Professor K's shadow going on there, so in order to get, because again, this is a 2D space. It's not an actual true 3D space, but there's Professor K's shadow against the wall, and then Professor K's shadow against the speakers. The speakers are also casting a shadow against the back of the wall. Right there, you can see there's a drop shadow of the speaker right there. Probably on the other side as well. Yeah, right there. So the speakers, and this is probably just a, if I turn this off, go into my drawing view, yeah, this is just an piece of artwork I drew in order to make the shadows for the speakers. That's all it is. and I placed it in there. It's a flat 2D element. And that is about it, guys. I think that's about all I can say about this. I want to thank you for watching. I hope I answered all of your questions. You can, if not, please feel free to hit me in the comments and maybe I can do another follow-up with this. I hope it was very clear. Again, it's just the basics. It's just the basics, just the basics, just the basics. And they're being layered on top of each other. A lot of it is also the music. I'm just animating to the music, and it's kind of driving the scene a little bit. Please click that red subscribe button to follow me on all my shenanigans. You can see some social links there. Follow me on Twitter, Tumblr, Blogger, Google+, for near daily updates of different sketches and stuff. The Wednesday Lunch Live sketch happens every Wednesday at 12 noon Eastern Standard Time, and you will also see a link there for more Toon Boom Harmony tutorials. Thanks, guys, and take care.